This Harry Kane thing, we touched on it yesterday. There isn't much new news on it. But as I said, Matt Law from The Telegraph has reported that Harry Kane is open to all options. Interpret that for me. What does that mean?
Well, do you know what I think it's quite interesting? I'm not sure I can think of a situation where this has occurred before. Effectively, what we're dipping into here is Harry Kane acknowledging the fact that he is happy to stay at Tottenham, happy to hear out Ange Postecoglou, but also happy to maybe have a conversation with Daniel Levy about potentially finding a new club. I can't think of a situation where this has happened before. You know, generally when a new manager comes in, a new manager will come in and say, I need to have a look at the squad, I'm going to assess the squad, and I'm going to make a decision on this squad when I've assessed it. Yeah. This is now Harry Kane going, I'm open-minded about what Postecoglou will bring to Tottenham. I'm open-minded to hear what Postecoglou's plans are, what his ambitions are, the way that he conducts himself. Let's hear how he wants to play. And then I will decide whether I'm open to playing for this manager.
So that's a player now. I don't want to ever say a player's bigger than the club, but that's a player almost a bit like what Mbappe's done with PSG, where it's like, no, I'll decide.
Yes, well, Tottenham's new manager now has to try and convince Kane of his ability. Yeah. Rather than the player convincing the manager of their ability. Yeah. This is the manager convincing the player of the manager's ability. Postecoglou has to somehow demonstrate to Harry Kane that it's worth him sticking around.
Yeah. Someone just tweeted and messaged in, how dare you message this? Can we send his money back, please? How much this message cost? Can we send it back? How many Messi goals were scored against a team that you would call top draw?
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah, I mean it's Europe, isn't it? He's also scored bundles of goals against Real Madrid. If that's your issue, but I mean, just look at the European record. I mean, goals in the World Cup.
Yeah, and one thing he does to the smaller teams, he does take them to the sword though. If it's a smaller team, he's putting 4s and 5s past you.
Do you not find that, you know, that mentality though? You know where people go, they call it a stat pattern, don't they? They say somebody scores goals against easier opposition. Yeah. I don't abide by that at all. I just think score goals. It doesn't matter who they're against. Just make sure that you score goals. Against anyone.
It's the hardest thing in football to do.
There's no such thing as a bad goal either.
It's ridiculous.
You know this like, but he doesn't score against the big sides. Look, if you're scoring goals for your team and your team are winning 3 points off the back of you scoring goals, you're doing your job.
Yeah, it could be anyone. It could be Burnley on a weekend. It could be anyone. Yeah. No disrespect to Burnley, by the way. New Burnley under Vincent Kompany. All right, shall we find out what Alex Crook has got for us? He's our chief football correspondent. Alex Crook with the transfer headlines of the day.
Good evening, guys. It's shaping up to be a big 48 hours for Romelu Lukaku, due back at Chelsea's training ground either tomorrow or Thursday. Doesn't look like he's particularly keen to return, though. Chelsea remain locked in talks with Inter Milan about a possible departure for their former record signing. Lukaku has made it clear he only has eyes on Inter turning down advances from Juventus and Saudi Arabia. talkSPORT understands Chelsea looking for a fee of around £40 million to sell Lukaku. Busy day in terms of medicals as well. Ashley Young undergoing his medical checks at Everton ahead of joining on a free transfer. And Victor Gyökeres, much talked about Coventry striker, scored a lot of goals for them in the Championship last season, got them to the playoff final. He's snubbed interest from the Premier League. Fulham amongst the potential suitors. He's on his way to Sporting Lisbon and has touched down to sign a 5-year contract, £20 million the fee. Brighton will get a fair chunk of that from a sell-on clause, having sold him to Coventry in the first place. Marcus Rashford has been linked again with Paris Saint-Germain. My understanding is that Manchester United relaxed about his future. He's close to signing a new deal at Old Trafford.
That's Alex Crook, our chief football correspondent, giving us the daily updates from a castle near you somewhere. Marcus Rashford, look, we are going to talk about that situation with Jay Motti from the Stretford Paddock. He's going to join us next. Marcus Rashford has a year left in his contract. Why is no one talking about this? How have I only just found this out? Have I only just found it out? What am I doing on talkSPORT? Have I only just found out that Marcus Rashford has a year left on his contract?
Is it not this simple? There's no furore around it. There's no hyperbole around it. There's no conversation around it because Marcus Rashford is going to sign a new contract at Manchester United.
Why hasn't he then? Like, you look at all the Arsenal players that had a year left, and Arsenal made sure. One thing Arsenal did was make sure they tied down all the most important people. Saka got tied down. Martinelli got tied down. Saliba recently got tied down. It was like the biggest business. I think Harry Symeou said Saliba was almost bigger than Declan Rice.
No, I agree.
Marcus Rashford clearly was Manchester United's best player last season. Scored bundles of goals. Remember, everyone compared him to Mbappe. He's got a year left. Why has he not done it then?
I think the fact that it's so relaxed, the fact that there isn't any conversation means that the people involved here, Marcus Rashford's agent and everybody on Manchester United side, must simply know that this is going to be signed.
How important is he to United?
I think he's incredibly important, not only because of the way he plays the game, but also because of who he is. Like, he represents Manchester so well, doesn't he? He's such a positive representation of that football club. I think he's a wonderful player, Marcus Rashford.
Yeah.
I think he has a very keen eye for a goal. And I think he's actually quite an underrated player. I don't know why, but people don't seem to give him the plaudits.
He goes either way for me. He goes to the point where he's overrated. You know, when he was on that run.
Some potentially.
He was on that run and everyone was doing the Mbappe comparison, because he does look good when he's good, to the point where sometimes he goes off the boil and he's completely...
But there was a point, like, you know, when you say the Mbappe comparison and you think that that's a little bit too lavish. There was a time, I think earlier, maybe around November. In fact, no, it was off the back of the World Cup, wasn't it? It was January.
Didn't stop scoring.
When he was the best player in the league. I'm not saying he is the best player in the league. I'm just saying that for a period, for a 6-week period, he was the best player in the league. It was sensational. I remember he had a little bit of an issue with Ten Hag. Ten Hag handled it very well, actually. I think he was just late for training.
Late, yeah.
And Manchester United went away to Molineux. And
your memory's pretty
they went
good,
away
isn't it?
to Molineux, they went away to Wolves, and the game was 0-0 at half-time, and they dropped Marcus Rashford. Erik Ten Hag was true to his principle and set the standard, dropped Marcus Rashford from the starting lineup. It really told. They were struggling. They brought Marcus Rashford on. They won the game 1-0. Marcus Rashford scored. He had a perfectly... there was a second goal that he scored that was ruled out for a handball that I thought was quite harsh. But there was a time when he was completely unplayable and was going to score every single time he played the game. Obviously, doing it to that level is what makes you Lionel Messi. You know, he did it for 6 weeks of an incredibly long season. But I do think that people are quite sneery about Marcus Rashford. They're about the form that he can display. Like, I genuinely think that if England had made more use of Marcus Rashford at the World Cup, he was England's top goal scorer at the World Cup.
I think me and you went mad. I think, yeah, remember.
England's top goal scorer at the World Cup. He wasn't given enough minutes. And look, sometimes, whatever you think of him, he was in a purple patch in that period. So just give him some games, get him on the pitch.
Get him on the pitch.
He's thriving.
30 goals in all competitions last season, 17 in the league, which is equals his highest. He done that in 1920. I think Marcus Rashford a really good player. Again, that's why I'm a bit... I'm not concerned, but if United fans are listening, I think they should be concerned that Marcus Rashford has a year left to run on his contract and PSG is sniffing. If PSG starts sniffing, I don't know.